The verdict is in. Where does it leave us? Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News. Andy Chow, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio. Terry Casey, Republican strategist. And Marianne Sharkey, public affairs consultant. It ended almost as suddenly as it began. 5 months after we learned of the whistleblower report, the impeachment trial of President Trump ended this week with his Senate acquittal. The vote in the Senate was as everyone expected months ago. A majority of senators voted to acquit the president, far short of the 2/3 necessary to remove him from office. Every Democrat voted to convict Trump. All but one Republican voted to acquit him. Ohio's senators followed their party's lead.
Over the course of this trial, we heard mounting, overwhelming evidence that President Trump did something that not even Richard Nixon ever did. He extorted a foreign leader. He fired a career foreign service officer for rooting out corruption. He put his own presidential campaign above our collective national security.
Since first seeing the transcript of the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky 4 months ago, I've consistently said that the president asking Ukraine for an investigation of Joe Biden was inappropriate and wrong. But while I don't condone this behavior, these actions do not rise to the level of removing President Trump from office and taking him off the ballot in a presidential election year that is already well underway.
Terry Casey, it is early. We're only a few days past the vote, but what do you think will be the lasting impact of the past 5 months?
Well, it's kind of like Charles Dickens said, a tale of two cities, the best of times, the worst of times. Republicans think this might be Trump's best week between the Iowa fiasco, his State of the Union message, the acquittal, and then Friday getting all the good economic news on jobs and wage growth. Obviously, Democrats have a totally different opinion, so it all depends on who you talk to.
The last poll right up to the morning of the vote, the poll I saw was 47% supported impeachment, 46% opposed it, even though we knew what the result was going to be, Marianne.
Yeah, and the approval ratings from Zogby came out, and I guess there must be an impeachment bounce because his ratings went up just like Bill Clinton's ratings went up. So, I mean, I can't really explain how you can, impeach a president and he actually gets a popularity bounce in the polls.
Yeah, Gallup had him at 49, but other ones had him back down in the mid to low 40s again. I saw today, other polls had anyway.
Right,
so.
if he's at 49, that's a high for him in his presidency.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that he would get some sort of a boost from it.
And the Trump administration and then his campaign is tailoring this narrative now of, well, he was able to stand up to his critics and he was able to come out on top. So it just kind of works within their talking points at this point. But it is going to be interesting to see what do Democrats do now. They've been focusing on the impeachment. They've been focusing on this trial. So where do they go from there? They have this information. They have what they think they can prove through all those hearings and everything, but will it really stick with voters?
Yeah, Democrats knew they weren't going to remove him from office, Marianne.
No, of course they knew.
Unless something incredible happened, that wasn't going to happen.
No.
So what did
they were trying to make their case to the American public, and obviously they made it in some quarters. I mean, Trump is still in trouble with suburban women and with women, and of course on showing up with Rush Limbaugh to give him a Medal of Honor doesn't help him at all with the women's vote.
Rob Portman, Terry, does not go on the ballot for another 2 years, 2022, when he's up next. That's a long time from now, but Democrats are certainly going to remind folks of this vote. What is the lasting impact on his re-election campaign should he run again?
Well, the biggest factor him is whether Democrats can find a viable known candidate. I wouldn't be surprised that Zach Klein, the city attorney here in Columbus, very ambitious. He was putting out things attacking, but the Democrat stable is rather thin and empty. And the problem is, can they get a viable candidate who can raise money and be effective? But obviously, Rob Portman, I'm sure, is happy he isn't on the ballot this year because it's a long time between now and 2022.
I think that if Rob Portman had voted to accept witnesses or had voted to impeach, he would have been inviting a primary challenge from within his party. in 2022. And I think that must have been on his mind as he was making these decisions.
I think it's so far out still that I don't know how much of an impact this is really going to have. Like Terry says, you have to run a strong candidate against him anyway. And the whole thing about Rob Portman is that he really didn't break away from the game that he's been playing for years and years now, sort of trying to straddle the fence a little bit and playing it safer than others. And if you read his op-ed in the New York Times, he sort of skated that line again, which is, yes, this thing that happened was wrong. Was it bad enough? I don't know.
But to his credit, he was one of the first Republicans to say it was wrong to ask for that quid
He
pro
was
quo.
to his
Basically
credit.
admitting it happened.
You know, I mean, he certainly did not endear himself to Trump, because anytime you say anything negative about Trump, other than that it was a perfect call, it's going to hurt you with Trump. I mean, Trump immediately went on tour, the next day of the prayer breakfast and then the East Wing, and just went after his enemies. He made it very clear that he's got a list, and I would bet you Portman's on that list.
But he voted with him, so it wasn't. He's on.
Yes.
He's down on the
Yes.
list.
Right.
But Rob Portman has always been more part of the Bush part of the Republican Party, because he worked originally for George H.W., very close to George W. So clearly Portman has more of that Ohio middle-of-the-road type of Republican image.
If he's on the list, he's further down. Mitt Romney's at the top of the list.
Yes.
And you got to
Yes,
remember,
true.
Portman did not vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Because he pulled back his endorsement after the Access Hollywood
Although
tape.
I think he's his co-chair in Ohio for
He is
his
now,
re-election, right.
but in 2016 he voted for Mike Pence instead.
Okay, it's been 21 years between impeachments. How long before the next one?
I think it'll be a while, because the lesson's reinforced. It's right in the Constitution. You got to get 2/3 of the votes. And I got to give Nancy Pelosi credit. Back on March 11th, when she interviewed with the Washington Post, she made very clear that the House shouldn't move ahead unless there's both bipartisan support and clear and overwhelming evidence. And when it came out so partisan,
She got bipartisan support, Terry.
well, on the one vote, but when you need to get 67 votes,
But if Joe Manchin had voted to acquit, the Republicans would have said it was bipartisan
Yeah,
too.
I think we're in dangerous territory, because first the Clinton stuff was very flimsy. We all know that, and in retrospect, it was almost silly.
But he did break the law.
He did on a civil deposition, which you can imagine what, I mean, good heavens, Trump's list went on and on and on and on, including the Mueller report, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it was nothing compared to what Bill Clinton did. We can't even compare the two.
Well, and I think it boiled down to on the Donald Trump impeachment is that they did have evidence of wrongdoing, and even Lamar Alexander, who he said, I don't need to hear from John Bolton because I already know they proved their case. This did happen, but I think that they weren't able to convince the American public, the majority. Like, the thing is, when Richard Nixon was in danger of being impeached, they started. I think the public was really with him, and then once it all started to get aired out, then the public
tapes.
turned against him.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen with Donald
Well, you
Trump.
also had Republicans
Public opinion didn't
who
sweep.
stepped up to the plate at that time. You didn't have that happen with Trump.
including like Barry Goldwater.
Barry
back then.
Goldwater,
He went to the
Howard
president and
Baker,
said, you got a problem.
others. Leadership in the Republican Party at that time told Nixon, we're not going to let you off the hook.
It has to be a slam dunk to kick the president out of office, and this obviously was not a slam dunk. Anyway,
Right.
let's hope the New Hampshire primary goes better than Iowa's caucuses did. It took a while, but in the end, we do now know who won Iowa. It basically was a tie between Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders. They tied for first. Buttigieg's strong finish was a bit of a surprise, as was Joe Biden's fourth-place finish behind Elizabeth Warren. Looming on the wings is Michael Bloomberg, who announced he will double his ad buy, and you're already seeing more of his ads on Ohio televisions. Marianne Sharkey, is Pete Buttigieg the Barack Obama of 2020?
I don't think so. I don't see the kind of talent. I mean, the Democrats didn't just stumble out of this gate. I mean, they fell flat on their face in Iowa. And the real winner, in my opinion, is Michael Bloomberg, because he stayed out of it. And he was smart to stay out of it. But we're going to be counting these Iowa votes. And by this time next week, we'll have New Hampshire. And nobody will care. Nobody will care what the Iowa results were.
I have to agree with Marianne and look for both Super Tuesday in early March, but particularly Ohio on March 17th to suddenly be a big player. So I think you're going to have a lot more activity. The window is going to be short in Ohio between Super Tuesday on March 3rd and the 17th, but Ohio's going to be a significant player, and the TV airwaves, too bad public TV doesn't take ads, but the ad rates are going to be up and the other stations are going to make a lot of money.
Well, and you do have, like, because everything was up in the air for so long, between Iowa and New Hampshire was a big time for maybe to pump up fundraising for one candidate or another, but because nobody really knew who the winner was for so long, they kind of miss out on that window of getting sort of an extra boost of funding going into New Hampshire.
There's always that window, speaking of windows, the 24 hours, Laura, after an election where all this truth comes out, you know, and what the campaigns did wrong, what happened, and it just looks like Joe Biden just ran a lousy campaign in Iowa, didn't have the organization, and just never caught fire.
Well, he's lagging in the fundraising, and
Yeah.
that's going to be a big problem for him going forward, particularly after South Carolina and Nevada. Like if he can't turn it around, he could be in deep trouble.
This is his third time out for president. And for some reason, Joe Biden, everybody believes he's the front runner. He starts out as a front runner. He's well known. People love him. He does great. And at some point, that support dissipates.
I think at some point during the debates and during his campaign speeches, and then when you look at the polling reaction afterwards, it's just not connecting with people. Like Marianne said, he's thought to be the front runner and he's thought to be a powerhouse, but when you look at his favorability numbers and everything, it doesn't really seem like he's connecting with voters on a day-to-day basis.
I'm going to agree again with Marianne. In fact, I'll do a little history. There's a thing in Russia called a Potemkin village. So from a distance, it looks like, boy, that's impressive. But as you get closer, you realize it's a cardboard figure with nothing behind it. And Joe just he wasn't going to get in Iowa, then he kind of got in it, then he failed miserably. And it looks like Bernie is going to do fairly well in New Hampshire because it's near Vermont and near Massachusetts where Senator Warren is.
So is Bernie Sanders the nominee?
Well, I think
Early.
I think a lot of Republicans are sure hoping so. I think Bernie could, pretty much lose to Trump. I just don't see it. I mean, with a socialist agenda like his, there's you have to win the presidential race in the industrial Midwest states. And Bernie is just not a Midwest kind of guy.
Why hasn't?
No, Sherrod Brown has that kind of appeal.
Why do you think that that Amy Klobuchar hasn't really caught fire?
I would like to. I'm interested in that myself because I do think she's a very attractive candidate.
She hasn't caught fire in these other states, but I do wonder when it does come to the Midwest, how she might be able to fare against other people, especially if the
She lives
field
just north of
narrows.
Iowa, though. You think she could have done better in
Well,
Iowa?
that's my point.
She did all right, though. I mean,
Yeah.
she was 14%. She's
Yeah,
hanging
She
on.
was still fourth or fifth is not people like to bet on the people who are going to win.
Yes.
Or be a close second. But she had counted a lot on Iowa because she's so close geographically and I think philosophically to a lot of people, but it just didn't catch on.
Sherrod Brown regretting his decision to stay out?
I don't think so. I never thought Sherrod's heart was in it. He would much rather sit in the outfield of an Indians game in the summer than go to, county fairs across the United States. I mean, Sherrod, he had to have fire in the belly, and I never saw that fire in his belly.
But I mean, one of the reasons speculation was he couldn't compete with Joe Biden for that Midwestern working class vote. And that's why when Biden was definitely in, he said, I'm out.
And I don't think Sherrod could have raised the national money. I mean, you got to give credit to Bernie in terms of the group he has, how he targets and how they respond and how much money he raises and how he spends it. And Bernie also has got a clear message. I'm not sure the message is going to sell in the Midwest and other parts of the country, but Bernie does deliver a message and talk about a recovery from a heart attack now to being where he's at.
And we're not talking about Elizabeth Warren yet, but clearly she's still very much in this race. And with the issue of women voters, she still could have quite a bit of appeal. I'm afraid that Hillary Clinton might have made people fearful of having a woman candidate running for president.
Well, I do think that there's a lot of misogyny that just rears its ugly head, and that would be true for a woman of either party seeking power.
Well, Amy Klobuchar brought that up. I mean, look, comparing herself to Pete Buttigieg, she said if the mayor of South Bend, Indiana was a woman, he wouldn't have raised all the money, or she wouldn't have raised all the money that he did, and wouldn't be in the position to win Iowa as he was.
But I'd also argue if you look at Trump and Bernie, They both are selling and have been selling change. I think Hillary would have done better if they'd have felt she was change. I think people felt in 16 she was business as usual, and a lot of people, Democrat and Republican, wanted change.
We got to remember, even though Elizabeth Warren ended up third, she still got 8 delegates in Iowa, so she's only a few delegates behind.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Buttigieg.
count her out. I mean, the Iowa vote really is, forget it. Nobody cares. It was yesterday's story.
Is this it for Iowa?
Yes,
Yeah.
it should,
You think so?
be buried gracefully and honored and move
Yeah,
on.
it should be.
We've said this before, haven't we?
Well, yes, we
Like
say it.
Santorum,
We
Mitt
say it every
Romney
4
tie,
years.
and-
We say every 4 years that Iowa shouldn't go first.
Well, and you look at these candidates, might have spent collectively $300 million in a state that size on TV, organization,
They
everything
might
like
as well just handed out walking around money to people.
be illegal, but
I think that money would be like better spent in another state with lots of vowels, Ohio.
Yeah. Well, if Mike Bloomberg makes a real run, I think you'll see the strategy certainly change,
Yes.
ignoring the early states. The Ohio House wants to scrap a major part of the state's private school voucher program. The House voted overwhelmingly to get rid of the system that allows students to go to so-called failing schools to qualify for a voucher to attend a private school. It would replace it with an income-based system where, say, a family of 4 making $65,000 a year could get a voucher. This plan differs from a Senate plan, which reduces the number of so-called failing schools and raises income limits for vouchers. Indy Chow, here we go again. The House and the Senate, very different plans for a problem. Is there any middle ground?
No, not yet so far. I mean, this was a clear move by the House to say that, hey, we have our own plan in place. This is what we want to do. The Senate already sent their version of the bill that's in a conference committee where the House and the Senate sit down and work out an agreement. And so for the House to just forget about the conference committee altogether and create their own legislation and pass that through sort of says, no, we're not gonna play your game. We want to play our own game. So now we've got the possibility of 2 conference committees happening on and deciding which piece of legislation to work from.
but I don't.
And to kind of put a cherry on top, the Senate was ready to vote to reject the House changes to the bill, and the House left without ever sending the bill over.
Was that intentional or just an oversight?
Maybe it was an oversight, but
I don't-
some senators do not view it that way.
There have been these technical parliamentary games that have been played, and I think that may have been one of them where, in order for the Senate to take up a concurrence vote, they have to get a message from the House. And so there are just these little games that are being played.
Kind of like Nancy Pelosi hanging on to the impeachment for a few weeks before sending
Yeah.
it over. Anyway.
But really, this is a bigger picture street fight between the House and the Senate. And Speaker Householder believes, number one, that the way to measure schools and their performance is not a good way to do it. And when you have 433 districts that have failing buildings within their district, including like at Upper Arlington, out of 613 districts, clearly you got to figure out something. So clearly people want to save school choice, but they also want to fix long-term better the school funding.
Comes down, how do you qualify for the voucher, Marianne? Should it be income-based or should it be school performance-based?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, I agree that performance-based has not worked. But we're suddenly going into this uncharted territory of a poverty level of 250%, according to the House bill. And there's no fiscal notes. I don't think anybody's read the bill. There's been not a single hearing on it. And no one knows. And you're going to just throw out the entire voucher way of awarding vouchers without even a hearing.
One of the big changes is it would have the state pay for the vouchers under the new House bill, rather than have it follow the student from the local school district.
When you do performance-based, then you're basing it off of which school building isn't, reaching the benchmark it needs to, and so the money follows that student from the school. So it's basically pulled from the school building. And under this structure, it would be coming from the state. And I think that sort of solves a problem that school districts have been complaining about for a while. And so Householder says he feels like if they're able to change this, then maybe they can bring school districts to the table to talk about other bigger issues.
School districts are going to be happy if they're not paying for it and the state is. But the big question is, how do you pass a levy? If they just think this money is going to come from the state and their school district's not going to have to pay for it, I mean, how will you get a levy passed?
But right now, a lot of people are having hard times passing levies because people say, wait a minute, we've got all these students where the property tax money we're paying for our local schools
Right.
is diverted off to a charter.
Right.
So there's two edges to that sword.
Right.
But I really think it's a big picture issue of school funding in the future in Ohio. And also, I think the House Speaker recognized there was a chance the OEA Teachers Union was going to do a constitutional amendment that would have stopped all charter and all choice. So it's a big picture, a long-term kind of thing, and we'll be talking about it in future weeks.
And it's a food fight right now
Yes.
between the House and the Senate.
One other big issue is, should the schools getting the vouchers be graded on their performance like the schools from where their students are coming are graded, the public schools?
Of course they should be.
Is that
Absolutely, they're
going
going to take
bill?
state money. They should get. They
That
should
won't be a
also
part of any bill that goes.
Yes.
No, I mean, that's
right.
something that's come up on the floor, but that's something that's not actually being discussed as a part of legislation at this point.
Well, they should be graded and evaluated, but nobody can agree on the best way to measure it.
We're in so much agreement on how we grade the public schools, Terry.
But we
understand.
already,
Change it every
we
2
already
years.
know there's bad operators out there.
I would-
mean, you know, and there's a whole bunch of loopholes for them to get through, and I won't bore people with that. But there's a bunch of loopholes bad operators can get through under current Ohio laws.
There's certain things that are absolute in this life, like death, taxes, and changes in Ohio's education policy. And this is just the beginning. Like, I think that, you know, the speaker has said that they need to change how the report cards are done. They need to change school funding. They need to change the testing system. And the voucher, this is just one piece of the education puzzle that they're going to try and work on.
And he's from Perry County, remember where the DeRolf
All
case
began.
originally came out of, and he recognizes it wasn't quite done right back then, 20-some years ago. There's still a chance to fix it.
That was the case that eventually led to the Supreme Court ruling the state system of education funding is unconstitutional. It was so long ago, we got to remind people about this one anyway. It appears some lawmakers, in particular House Speaker Householder, are growing impatient with the lack of a resolution to the Strauss scandal at Ohio State. A university investigation found OSU team doctor Richard Strauss sexually abused scores of athletes and students in the 1980s and 90s. Strauss died by suicide 15 years ago. The university promises to come to a monetary settlement with victims, but with no deal in sight, Householder called for a hearing on a bill to extend the statute of limitations on sex abuse lawsuits. In a statement, Householder said he is disappointed in Ohio State. He says, quote, "Our patience is wearing thin. We expected Ohio's flagship state university to step up by now and do the right thing for students that parents placed in their care. It appears a trust has been broken." Laura Bischoff, strong words from the speaker there. Why are state lawmakers getting involved in this civil matter between OSU and former students?
Well, you know, the thing is, Ohio State's facing something like 17 lawsuits with 350 litigants, multiple lawyers. It's kind of all over the place. It's in mediation right now. And I think one of the hammers that they can hang over Ohio State is this threat that they're going to change the law, open up the look-back period for these civil lawsuits. Now, so the speaker is applying pressure in that way. The governor also said that he thinks that it's time for Ohio State to settle the case, settle the matter. However, the governor said he didn't think that, he said that there's probably ethical, moral, and constitutional issues with a bill similar to 249, which would just open the look-back window for Ohio State Strauss victims. It would exclude people who maybe were victims of abuse by Catholic priests, for example.
Any organization.
Right.
Yeah, if the whole issue is a chess match, then this is just Householder making one of those moves to sort of see where OSU might go from here. Because this bill is something that's had 5 hearings in the House and then was just kind of put on hold, because I think what they saw was, all right, we held our hearings, we had everybody say what they wanted to say, and now let's see if OSU comes to the table. And
Does OSU make a deal now, Terry?
Well, it's all about the money, and Ohio State's looking at Michigan State that had to pay out $500 million. USC in the last month or so had to pay out $217 million for what a doctor did wrong there. So Ohio State is worried that they might not have the money. On the other hand, Ohio State's in the middle of a $5 billion fundraising effort. And how are you going to get a good new OSU president if the person's got to walk in here and face this mess not resolved?
That's a good question. Very good question. I mean, the Catholic Church had the same thing. They were very worried, about the statute of limitations and how much it was going to cost them. And the same thing's going on at OSU.
All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. Marianne, you're up first.
We're still going to be counting Iowa votes past the Ohio primary on March 17th.
Terry.
In most of the Franklin County, there's a heated race starting up for the 3rd Congressional District. Joyce Beatty versus an AOC Bernie Sanders person who didn't even vote in Franklin County in the last 10 years.
Morgan Harper.
Absolutely, and it's going to heat up a lot more. And interestingly, Harper is for Bernie Sanders Medicare for All. Congressman Beatty is for fixing Obamacare, improving it. So there's some big issue differences.
All right.
We have a 60-day window to get something going with EdChoice, and I think it's going to take all 60 days to actually see any movement.
All right, Laura.
It was a good week for Donald Trump. The Iowa caucuses were totally messed up. He got his acquittal in the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi, resorted to ripping up his speech. My prediction is that next time she'll bring a desktop shredder or a Weber grill.
Well, as you saw, Chief Justice Roberts presided over a federal trial which was televised, believe it or not, and the world did not come to an end. So let's hope that future proceedings that Chief Justice Roberts presides over will soon have cameras in there so we can see what the U.S. Supreme Court does in real time and not rely on those cool drawings. They had some of those during the impeachment trial, too, because of the rules on cameras. But anyway, that is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the discussion on Facebook and Twitter, and see each episode on demand at WOSU.org. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.